While the lineage of languages, and whether or not there was once a standard system of communication, is still up to debate, an old Mesopotamian myth links the origin of languages to the Tower of Babel. According to the myth, once upon a time, every dweller on earth spoke the same language. With their sense of union that arose from the common understanding, and hoping to reach the wisdom of gods, they started to build a tower, so high that it would reach the heavens above. Gods, enraged and maybe a little startled, tore the tower down and altered the speaking patterns across communities. Language ceased to be the tool of communication, breaking the unity among people. However, as anthropologist Alan Barnard suggests, languages were not developed only to communicate basic needs, but to tell stories. Stories that pass down the experience and the wisdom to upcoming generations take place on a much deeper level than what is provided by linguistics. According to Barth, a story relies on meaning, not words. Barth writes, "To read a narrative is not to pass from one word to another, but from one level to the next." Stories create communities, not necessarily languages. Narratives are present at all times, in all places, in all societies. Indeed, narrative starts with the very history of mankind, and storytelling is not bound to only oral traditions. The first story that was ever told may be a mystery, but the traces of visual storytelling are evident in the cave paintings even from the Ice Age, such as the 30,000-year-old animal figures in Chauvet Cave in France. These images are believed to be the carriers of rituals and beliefs, brought communities together. As the ways of living collectively changed throughout the ages, so did the narratives. When early stories were probably about hunting, animals, nature, and physical forces, starting from the Neolithic age, in addition to agriculture, animal breeding, and construction methods, new forms of living together and property ownership have also started to be narrated and visualized. The world's oldest map is suggested as the wall painting from a Neolithic settlement in central Turkey, Çatalhöyük. As social relations changed, new governance methods emerged, and the stories conveyed through space altered. Stories were being utilized by authorities to conquer without a battle. Memorials were needed in order to manifest the history and legitimize the power. Senet writes, "The emperor depended upon making his power seen in monuments and public works. Power needed stone." Architecture was one of the main tools in visualizing the narrative of the order. Even though narratives of authority may bond nations to one another, stories have the power of creating communities and healing past traumas for smaller groups as well. Local stories can be considered as tools of resistance as they prepare their listeners to think about other possibilities of living. Still, Benjamin declares that the stories, and with them storytellers, are on the edge of extinction, losing their places to the daily news updated by the media. He writes, "Every morning brings us the news of the globe, and yet we are poor in noteworthy stories." Momentary information such as the daily news is relevant only temporarily. Once consumed by the public, they lose their significance, whereas stories are told and retold throughout generations without losing their influence. Seasonal stories bring communities together to remember their heritage. While the news line up through time, stories create spirals. Sarto agrees that both stories and storytellers are disappearing from the public space, leaving their spot to rumor and fast news. However, he reveals that neither stories nor storytellers are ever vanishing completely. They are only receding into isolated corners, like homes and small crowds. Still, even if the stories of everyday life, the narratives of resistance, may seem like they don't have a place in the public realm, with the aid of minor distortions, even the tools of authoritarian storytelling can be used to vocalize the narratives of people. Such tactics, where the authority's message is reappropriated to convey another message, the narratives of people, can be called détournement, which can be translated as diversion or subversion. Détournement is a form of critical sabotage, where the assimilation of an existing system or a form is used as a new medium. Talking statues of Rome is a phenomenon in which the public opinion vocalized through poems attached to certain statues starting from the 16th century. The series of talking statues began with a short satirical verse attached to one of the statues in Piazza Navona criticizing the oppressive religious regime, soon after followed by other statues. Thus, over the past centuries, even if the figures were removed from their spots, and the ones who expressed their opinions via the statues despite the prohibitions were sentenced with the death penalty, and more practical ways of communication emerged over time, the sculptures are still places where public opinion is expressed. The resistance opportunity provided by the statues brings the community together to raise their voice in an anonymous and satirical way. The poems create spaces of attention. Precarias a la Deriva is an initiative of activism and research that emerged as a response to the 2002 Spanish general strike, which excluded mostly women workers who work unofficially, thus not represented by any unions. The group was formed by women who walked through the city on the day of the strike, starting conversations with other women about their backgrounds, current situation, and their opinions about the ongoing events. It created an environment for women from different branches of the unlicensed workforce to walk through their everyday paths, interviewing one another, making a moving research, gathering various fragments of expertise, wisdom, and intelligence. For the community, their part in the general strike was care. Thus, they named their action a care strike. Even though neither the talking statues of Rome nor the Precarias a la Deriva seem like a traditional way of storytelling, they have substantial common grounds with it: attention and care. Estes informs that stories blossom from hardship and our attitude when faced with it, through hard work of tending and concentration. Even the stories that got impaired and forgotten due to the paradigm of the day can be restored and mended with enough discipline. At the end of the day, the monument of resistance and solidarity is not a monument, it's an empty space. And the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Wisdom, is not made out of stone and mortar, as the myth suggests. It's a long line of stories and storytellers, all leaning towards each other.